Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show I read a lot of comic books, and I let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Cobra Commander, issue number 4, from Image Comics, from Skybound Entertainment, from the Energon universe. It is no secret, I am such a fanboy for the Energon universe, taking properties I know like Transformers and G.I. Joe and reinvigorating them for a modern comic book audience with awesome creators who are passionate about the projects that they're pursuing. Josh Williamson is one of these dudes, and he promised that he was going to deliver the definitive Cobra Commander story to explain fully why Cobra would follow this dude, why Destro, why the Dreadnoks, why everybody who seemingly hates this dude, this in the cartoon cowardly leader. We gotta have an actual reason now to have this dude be threatening, to be a menace, and to be a leader that people will follow. And that is exactly what has been delivered in this incredible book. This is a great turning point in the story, setting up the final issue. This is the penultimate issue, and the artwork by Andrea Milana has this vicious edge to it that is absolutely stunning, shocking, violent when it needs to be. It soars. The Energon universe is recapturing something or reigniting something. And I guess it's a passion for comics. And right now, everything they do, I am on edge about. Like on the edge of my seat. Can't wait to read it. Cobra Commander number 4. No exception. That's your pick of the week because it is a huge week of comics. Most of them were just kind of alright, but that one really stood out for me. We also have Sam and Twitch Case Files issue number 2, written by Todd McFarlane with artwork by Szymon Kudranski. John Goff helping on the plot there. I like the art. I like the art a lot in this book. It's what you know from Kudranski, but it's less moody because this story in particular at this moment doesn't lend itself to be ultra moody, but the art is solid. The story's all right. It's a typical kind of thing that we've seen before, probably already in the pages of a Sam and Twitch book or a Spawn book, but it's interesting enough. The lettering seems to have gotten a little bit better in this one. It is lettered by Tom Orzechowski, but there was something in issue number 1 with its style, which is trying to mimic the style of the original Sam and Twitch book that was written by Brian Michael Bendis. It just, something about it felt a little bit off. It was a little bit more clear and easy to read here. So Sam and Twitch Case Files, issue number 2, it's aight. Speaking of aight, we got Spawn here with 352, and it was alright. I really wanted Brett Booth to shine here in the pages of Spawn, and it still has some really solid artwork, but it's not quite what it was when he was on Gunslinger Spawn. I don't know quite what the difference is. I don't know, I need to pay attention. I mean, it's cool, the layouts are there, the line work is there, but something's off. It seems like it's the coloring, maybe it's the inker. I don't know, I'm just not picking up quite the vibe that I was getting in his Gunslinger Spawn, but the story is just kind of alright as well. Now that we've had the big revelation of 350, Spawn's kind of slowing down a little bit. It's kind of going into this vampire storyline and diving into that, and also kind of teasing an Angela type figure, but it's kind of slow paced. It's just kind of getting there, and I don't know, something about Brett Booth's artwork here, it doesn't quite have the same punch as Gunslinger Spawn, and I need to look at the creators and see exactly maybe why. Maybe it's the coloring, maybe it's the inking, but in this it seems to be the coloring. But Spawn 352, it was alright. Then we've got Something Epic, issue number 9. Now, issue number 8 started a whole new arc for Something Epic, and it was about the murder of a fictional character. Now we've got the murder of a mythological character, and the investigation that spins out around that, and how it's all wrapped up thematically with these musings on existence, imagination, belief, faith, good, evil, these kind of ideas, and the way it's wrapped around the mythology that's playing with. Absolutely fantastic stuff. It's a little bit wordy, but all those ideas are so solid. They transfix me. As I'm reading the book, I'm meandering around, thinking about these concepts, getting lost in the imagery, and the imagery is absolutely fantastic. Szymon Kudranski is hitting another level each single issue of something epic. I said that last issue you could jump into that arc not having read anything before. That is true, and that maintains true here in issue number 9, which I thought was absolutely stunning in its concept, in its art, and even in its execution. Then we've got Hack Slash Back to School issue number 4, the final issue of the Zoe Thorogood created series. Now this is Tim Seeley's creation, Hack Slash, but Zoe Thorogood's been doing this, I guess, prequel of sorts. I've never really read a lot of Hack Slash, but I having just a few months ago read It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, really do like the work of Zoe Thorogood, so I definitely wanted to check this series out. I've enjoyed the series, and I was enjoying issue 4, and then something happened, and I was like, what? And I felt lost, and I felt like it was very abrupt and a jarring kind of ending to the series. It was just kind of had this nice pace throughout, and then just cuts and does some stuff, and maybe I need to sit down and read it all. Maybe I need to know more about the world of Hack Slash. But I was rather confused by the ending of that. Let's jump over to Marvel. We've got Ultimate Black Panther, issue number 3. Another really slow and deliberate buildy issue of Black Panther. Not a lot of action. I mean, there's like one fight scene here between, like, I guess it's like Shuri and Okoye. But, like, not a lot of action. Not a lot of stuff explained. Just kind of a lot of, like, mood. A lot of nice pace. Like, it's got a great pace to it. The dialogue is spot on. But 3 issues in, this story's barely moved ahead. Like, barely moved ahead. And it gets to an ending where you're like, okay, that seems really cool, but nothing was revealed in this issue, it seems. I don't know. It's mostly T'Challa wandering around with Killmonger and Storm. And it's cool, and it's got some interesting concepts. But it's not moving forward. We really got to pick up the pace here in Ultimate Black Panther, because with all the hype on Ultimate Spider-Man, this one and even Ultimate X-Men kind of getting left behind just a little bit, but they're all actually kind of slow burns and slow builds, and very intentionally and deliberately so. So I'm on board. It's great art. It's a great story. It's just not really moving forward. So you wait for an issue, you read it, and you're like, that's all I got. That didn't feel like a full issue. I don't know. Ultimate Black Panther number 3, though, it was aight. Then we got Avengers Twilight here with issue number 5, the penultimate issue of Avengers Twilight, and it was awesome. It was awesome. This book did, which is like an alternate futuristic take on the Avengers, right? Coming out of retirement, Captain America has to reform the Avengers to go up against some villains who have kind of taken over and usurped power in America, right? And all of those players, who they are and what they represent and what they're doing, it all makes sense. Chip Zdarsky understands these characters. He understands how to take these characters, evolve them to some point in the future, fracture their relationships, and try to bring it back together. All of the personalities are there. They all ring true. The artwork by Daniel Acuna is absolutely stunning. It is monumentous and boisterous and action-packed when it needs to be, but it's also small, subtle, and kind of nuanced when it needs to be as well. And this is just a big explosive fight issue that has a great cliffhanger. A great cliffhanger that really has you excited for issue number 6. I think Marvel might have a perennial, milestone, evergreen graphic novel on shelves soon that will always work. Avengers Twilight, really good stuff. Then we've got Ghost Rider Final Vengeance issue number 2. Parker Robbins, aka The Hood, now has the spirit of vengeance, and this is the first issue of really exploring that and what he's going to do with the spirit of vengeance. So he's Ghost Rider now, right? It's aight, it's cool, artwork's okay, story's alright, it's decent enough. It kind of catches you up on who the Hood is if you're not familiar, catches you up on the spirit of vengeance, throws you right into it, has some interesting things, but overall, the only thing that's really cool about this book is what would the Hood do with the spirit of vengeance? What's all going to come out of this? But the execution of the book itself is just kind of okay. Just kind of mediocre. Then we got Spider-Boy here with issue number 6. Continues to be way better than I thought it would ever be. Seriously, I thought I would read Spider-Boy for like one issue, and drop right out of it. I have been engaged. I have not been enthralled, but I have been very much entertained by this book. It's got a lighthearted approach to it, but at the same time, it takes itself seriously when it needs to. So it actually maintains that balance really, really well. And this character of Spider-Boy, as annoying as he could be easily, he's not annoying me. And I think that's why this book is impressive to me, is because I'm not annoyed by it. If that makes sense. Miles Morales, Spider-Man here, issue number 19. I just stopped reading Amazing Spider-Man. And I thought that Miles Morales is better than Amazing Spider-Man, but I've hit this point where I don't care anymore. Like, even the art by Vincentini, which I loved, and one of my favorite things throughout all of it, it just kind of feels cluttered and chaotic now, but I still like the artwork, and there's even a bit in here where it goes black and white for a while, and that's really cool. But I'm just kind of, this story's been interrupted and usurped by so many different, like, events and tie-ins and editorial mandates that I have lost the plot completely. So I don't think that it's a bad book by any means, but I am so far removed from it that when I read it, I find myself just dulled out and bored and just struggling to get through it. So I think I may either A, quit reading it, or B, try to catch up in whatever little time I don't have, try to reread issues 1 through 18 to see if I can make some sense of the thread. I mean, it's just kind of all over the place, right? Then we've got Amazing Spider-Man 255. This is a facsimile version of this title. They are reprinting in facsimile form all of the Amazing Spider-Man books from 1984, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the black costume. These are some of the first Spider-Man books I remember reading as a kid. Was this era and right after, and a little kind of like this era was like the start of it and right after. So it's been a joy to pick these up and read them along month by month along with the Secret Wars facsimiles. I'm having a lot of fun with that. I just wish they would have done foils for these, but this one's got Ron Friend's artwork. Look, it's a cookie crisp ad. I do wish they would reprint them on newsprint. I do wish that. Let's jump over to Dark Horse. And from Dark Horse, we have Dudley Datson, Dudley Datson, and the Forever Machine, issue number 1. This is from Scott Snyder and Jamal Eagle. This is it's an alright book. It's about this young man he wants to be an inventor, and he winds up learning about this secret council of inventors. There's a talking dog there. So it's okay. It's a cool setup, just like all the other Comixology originals from Scott Snyder that are now being printed over at Dark Horse. Each issue is double size. Each issue is actually 2 issues. And it had a decent flow to it. It was an interesting enough story, but the art was just kind of like, all right. And one of the things about these Dark Horse Comixology original Scott Snyder books is like the artists, like Tula Lute, Greg Capullo, Francis Manapul, Francisco Francavilla, and Jamal's work is fine and it's serviceable, but it's just not quite working for me. And maybe it's the coloring, maybe it's just I don't know, compared to the other art. The art was the thing that just kind of made this seem all right. Like, I think with the more stylized form of art, it could have soared a little bit higher. Then we have Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 2. Tom King, Bill Key, Evely. I loved the first issue. I thought it was my pick of the week. I made it my pick of the week. I really liked issue 2 as well. We continued the story of this young woman. Her grandfather's now there. Her father just passed away. He wrote these fiction books. They may be based on some kind of actual fantasy life that he lived along with his father, her grandfather. She doesn't know about it. She wants to know about it. This dude's not talking to her. You got this like woman who's like hired to tutor her and be her caretaker. She's kind of stuck in the middle of it. You have amazing, intricate, complex, beautiful artwork from Evely, and you've got a really solid script from Tom King. It's wordy, it takes a while to get through, but it never gets in the way of itself, and it doesn't over-explain what's going on in the panel that's obvious. It's actually illuminating other sides of the story through its narration while other things are being shown, and I think Tom King is really getting better, even though he's writing very dense scripts as far as the dialogue and narration goes. He's getting better at balancing out and not just telling you what can clearly be seen. He's actually using that narration to do something different, to recontextualize things. There are some things structurally here where they move to the future and then back to the past, and that feels a little bit out of place and honestly not the focus of the story and not the exciting part of the story. It's the art that sells it, but the story and even the way that it's told really kind of keeps you in. It feels classic, it feels literary, if I dare say. But Helen and Wyndhorn, issue number 2, I did like that one. Then we got John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, issue number 2. I think I remember liking issue number 1, but I read issue number 2 and I didn't like it. I just kind of felt lost. And then I started remembering, oh, I remember this book. I thought it was all right. And that's kind of what I got out of issue number 2. In fact, it was a huge stack this week. So you really had to stand out for me in my stack this week. Toxic Commando just didn't necessarily do that. Then we had Blue Book here with issue number 3 of the 1947 series. This is the issue that starts getting into the Roswell incident. This is just facts listed out like it's a report, like it's an episode of Unsolved Mysteries or something. Michael Avon Oeming, monochromatic, sometimes dichromatic artwork. Really cool stuff with the art, but not an exciting way to tell this story, but still a good way to tell this story. I love Oeming's artwork. I like the matter-of-fact nature of it. I like how it feels like a dramatization of a documentary or something. And I love that we're getting into the Roswell stuff and kind of getting into some of the smaller details that get overlooked about the beginning of that whole situation. But Blue Book 1947, if you like UFOs and alien conspiracies, definitely check that out. Over at DC, we got Superman issue number 13, second part of the House of Brainiac. Yo, it's clear on the cover. The Zarians are back. Lobo's people. What? I thought he was the last survivor. Well, we also thought Superman was the last survivor of Krypton. Turns out that's not true, and it's not true for Lobo. He's not the last of his race either. However, it's all tied into Brainiac, so I think you can kind of figure out what's going on there. But Brainiac is back on Earth. All of his forms are there. There's a mystery about him trying to create something. He's kidnapping people, making them smaller. Superman's having to team up with Lobo to go after Brainiac and the other Lobo-type people that are there. It's fun, it's rambunctious, it's cool, it's awesome, and it's a Superman crossover for 3 months between Action and Superman, all written by Josh Williamson. This one has amazing artwork by Sandoval. I really like this book. I like what we're playing with. We're playing with stuff from the past, we're playing with stuff in the present, and we're setting up a very cool future for the Superman books. Josh Williamson's been doing that since day one on this title, and he continues to do so in issue 13. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue number 26, kicks off the Impossible story that was kind of kicked off in issue 25. Basically, there's some kind of a big threat that is getting all of the fifth dimensional imps that are... So if Batmite is the fifth dimensional imp who's a fan of Batman, and Mxyzptlk is the one that's attached to Superman, all of the Justice League has one. Like Green Lantern has a Green Mite, Flash has a Flash Mite, all that kind of stuff. But so do the villains. The villains have their corresponding versions or iterations in the fifth dimension. They are now wrecking shit in the DC universe, and that's what we're dealing with here. But what really sells it are those colors by Tamara Bonvillain and that amazing artwork by Dan Mora. It's big, but it's also fun and kooky. It's not taking itself too seriously, but at the same time, it's doing some awesome stuff. And Dan Mora and Tamara Bonvillain, I could just look at their artwork for days. Then we have Wonder Woman here with issue number 8. Another solid issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman. I did not like the last issue, which was kind of like in the middle between this outlaw story and now the current story. This is the second arc, I guess you could say, of the Tom King run. Brilliant artwork by Daniel Samperi. I love the artwork in this book. It works. It's an interesting story. Wonder Woman's been caught. She's wrapped up in this stuff called the lasso of lies. They're trying to sell her on this like American dream of like this 50s like women in their place, and they're using like quotes from the Bible. So it could be considered like a controversial issue by some people if that's how you wanted to look at it. But I rather enjoyed this issue. I didn't like this book at first, but the more it goes along, the more I am liking it. That being said, that last issue though, where Superman and Wonder Woman have to go like buy Batman a present, that was dumb. Then we got Nightwing 113, aka 300. Tom King is not Tom King, Tom Taylor is getting ready for the end of his Nightwing run. This is a celebratory issue. It's Nightwing's birthday, so it's about what he wants to do, which is uplift others. It's a decent enough story. It's all right, but what we're really excited for is all the setup that happens here to build into that last arc from Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. They've been doing a solid job in Nightwing. It's been running a little bit thin on me, so I'm happy to see it kind of gear up for the finale, and it seems to be a climactic one there. There's a nice tribute here, by the way, to Marv Wolfman and George Perez in there. That was nice and touching. Titans issue number 10, it's all right. I'm kind of losing focus on the Titans, not really getting into it as much as I was in the beginning. In fact, it never really quite fully clicked for me, and I feel like I stayed in there just because I knew that Titans Beast World was setting some stuff up for what was happening in the DC universe. But now that that's gone, I've never really been a Titans fan. I don't really have that much of a connection to a lot of these characters, so it's just kind of losing interest, right? I'm just kind of losing interest in it, not really vibing with it. The artwork is fine, the story's fine, but it's just not completely wowing me. And once again, huge stack of comics this week. Batman Off-World, issue number 4. This one's kind of waning on me a little bit too. I love the first couple issues of this of this book. It's Jason Aaron coming in to do a Batman story where Batman's like a year into his profession, and then he wants to go out into space so he knows how to handle aliens. He gets his ass kicked, and now he's like rising above. So it's a cool, typical cliche type story. But now I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's decent and it's cool, but there is an element of the story that was brought to my attention recently. I don't remember by who. And I'm like, so this is basically Batman Year 2. This is Year 2 Batman, who's straight up fighting, like, intergalactic armies and stuff. Like, it kind of takes you out of the idea of a young Batman at this point, and now he's like God Batman again. And, I mean, it's all right. It's not that the book's not good. It is good, but there's an element to it that's just a little bit spoiled for me now, kind of having thought about it in that way. Green Lantern War Journal, issue number 8, though. I'm loving still what Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing with the character of John Stewart. This mystery of how he's playing with the Star Heart and the Radiant Dead and all this stuff. I really like the artwork. I really love the coloring. I like that Jeremy Adams over at the Hal Jordan book, Philip Kennedy Johnson here, they're able to kind of build in the same world, in the same lore, and do twisty, cool, new things with it that doesn't rely so much on what Jeff Johns built. That's usually what people do. They try to replicate that. I feel like Adams and Philip Kennedy Johnson are doing their own things. Each book a separate identity, but all part of the tapestry overall that is the Green Lantern Corps. Then we've got Jay Garrick Flash, issue number 6. This is from DC Comics, the final issue of this series, and it's a decent wrap-up. A typical superhero story out of all of these new Golden Age books, these miniseries. They did the Wesley Dodds Sandman book. It was good, had a very satisfying ending. This is a satisfying ending, but it's a typical ending. It's not any, like, from page 1, I knew how this book was going to go. We knew the way it was going to wrap up. The artwork gets a little bit frantic. It does feel a little bit rushed at times, but it's still pretty good. It was decent. It was a nice, fun run, and now all we got left is the final issue of the Alan Scott Green Lantern title, and we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, the ultimate end of the much-delayed Justice Society from Jeff Johns. But Jay Garrick, it was all right. Then we got Facsimile celebrating the 50th anniversary of DC at the time. That was like in 86? Is that when this initially came out? Was it 84? Was it 84? Yeah, it was 84. So this is also the 40th anniversary, just like Secret Wars. Yeah, of course it's 84. For some reason, I always think 86, but I guess that's when the post-crisis stuff really kicked off, like Superman by John Byrne. Anyway, DC is doing the same thing that Marvel's doing with Secret Wars for its 40th anniversary. It's re-releasing them monthly in facsimile form and with foil covers. That's super cool. I have all these issues. They're in really poor condition, but I want to have foil ones to go along with my Secret Wars. These are 2 of the most important comic books in my personal life, and DC printed them on newsprint, and it gets the smell of the week. So there you go. All right, then we got John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue number 4. If you liked that cerebral, dark, mature take of Constantine back in the Vertigo days, this is the book for you. It does build on things that have already been set up and established in the previous run. You may feel lost at times, but each issue has a thematic statement to make. In this series in particular, Dead in America, Constantine is dead, trying to solve some issues and going through America and kind of focusing in on America and its problems and its histories and its roots and the horror of everything. And it's got similar vibes to the Brian Azzarello run, but it's a different run because there's more people surrounding John, and it's not just so episodic. But some really great ideas, some amazing artwork, some really cool stuff. Direct ties into old school Sandman, direct ties into old school Swamp Thing, and direct ties into old school Hellblazer. Really like this title, really like that. Let's jump over to Boom. And from Boom, we have Blow Away, issue number 1. This is written by Scott Thompson with artwork by Nicola Izzo and Francisco Segala on the coloring. This book was alright. It was decent. Its premise is kind of the first issue, right? Like, you read the solicitation, that is the first issue. It's executed okay, but it does take a moment to get there. And once it gets there, you're like, you wish that there was more to it, right? But the basic premise is this woman's on some island in Canada. It's like super cold there, ice everywhere. She's trying to get video of this rare bird or something like that. And she witnesses these hikers, and she witnesses a murder. That is the solicitation for the book. I was excited to dive in. Then you read the book, and you get to her witnessing the murder, and the book ends. The book ends, and you're like, your pitch to sell me the book was your first issue. I needed more than that. Like, I wish some of these first issues, I'm not saying hide the solicitation, because that is the hook. That's how you get to see, like, somebody out in the Arctic witnesses a murder out in this desolate place, right? Okay, that's cool, but can you not, like, get to that point sooner and then build from that within the first issue and not have to just deliver us the concept in the first issue and have a little bit more to it? I don't know. That kind of, I don't know. That's how I felt about that one. Then we got I Heart Skull Crusher, issue number 2. I was really surprised with issue number 1, and issue number 2 was good as well. It's about this world in which there's this game called like Paintball, which does at times involve murder and slaughter and stuff like that, so that's kind of neat. But it's about this young woman who was like an uber fan of one of the most popular players. Now she is trying to join this league or this tournament. She needs to put her own team together, and of course nobody wants to be on her team, so this is her trying to put together the team, her first match. It's like one of those typical kind of, you know, pull together the misfit team kind of things, like Bad News Bears, Mighty Ducks, but with murder ball, basically. And I'm having fun with it. I like the art. It's got a nice kinetic style to it, very manga influence. So I like the first issue. Issue 2 kept that momentum going. Animal Pound, issue number 3, was a delight to read. I really enjoyed this book. I hated the first issue of this book. I really enjoyed 2, and I really enjoyed 3. In issue 3, we get, like, basically a historical reenactment of these animals and who's leading them. So you get the first leader, the first term, second term, and it goes through all these different leaders, and you get to see the evolution of the idea of these people, or my bad, these animals trying to make a free society. They free themselves from the pound. They have this rule, no more closed doors, and now the rabbits and the cats and the dogs all have to work together and form like a system of government and community. And this shows all, like, it's actually kind of literary and educational feeling at the same time, so it kind of goes through the different leaders and all the factions that have arisen and all the problems that they're going with, and it actually covers a whole lot of material in a little bit of time. It's a dense read, but it's a rewarding read, and then when you get to the end, it's like one of the best endings of a Tom King book in a long, long time. Animal Pound number 3, I really did like that. The Displaced issue number 3, it was all right. Issue number 1 and issue number 2 were cool, but now it's kind of like, what's the identity of this series? We got the concept. A whole town disappears. Nobody remembers the town. Some people that were in that town weren't there, right? They're of the town, but they weren't there. They're like on the outskirts of town, so they're still around, but nobody remembers them either. And so now it's about them having to, I guess, find their way. They've all banded together, and some people want to go this way, some people want to go this way, so it's about the conflict, but it hasn't really quite rooted anything into the identity of what this book is about outside of just dealing with this concept and this situation. So we'll see as it develops, but so far, 3 issues in, I wish we could have gotten a little bit more forward progression, but at the same time, maybe it's because I read like a giant stack of books, right? Then we have Under Heist here with issue number 3. I'm a big fan of the Laphams. David Lapham's Stray Bullocks, one of my favorite comics. of all time, like one of my favorite crime comics. We were talking about that on a Rockin' Robbie Live not too long ago. But Under Heist is a crime heist story that involves like a dark occultic kind of thing. And because the book hasn't really come out on a very good regular basis, it's hard for me to get plugged back in, but I think it would definitely be worth me going back and rereading 1, 2, and then 3 again to get ready for issue 4, because I know that there's promise here, but I'm just feeling slightly disconnected and not fully grasping all of the connections here. Another book that was like that was Lotus Land. Lotus Land by Darcy Van Polgeest and Gaio Felipe. This is the final issue. I really liked this book, but at a certain point, I think it was right before issue 3, I reread 1 and 2, and then 3 again, and it worked for me, made 4 a little bit better, then 5 was a little confusing again, and then I did the same thing this week where I reread 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and this was a great book. So I would highly encourage you to check them out. There should be a trade paperback at some point. It definitely is worth reading all in one chunk. And now that the 6th issue is here, I will find the time to read all 6 in one sitting, because it's not a long read, but it's definitely something that's worth the read. Really cool world, really cool story, really cool take on like a film noir detective story, hard-boiled type style, but with a little bit more to it than that. So I had a lot of fun with Lotus Land, but it took me having to intentionally go back and stay plugged into that book. I think Under Heist, maybe some of these other books are like that. Army of Darkness Forever, though, issue number 7, kicking off the second arc of this book, which I have said on record and continue to say, the best Army of Darkness comic I've ever read. Tony Fleece is doing a direct sequel to Army of Darkness, to the original theatrical ending, to the original alternate ending, and just continuing the story in the medieval days, right? 3 timelines building up into one story that's all starting to make more and more sense, and it has the vibe of that movie. The voices of those characters ring true. The artwork is a little bit loose and not quite up to par at some points. It feels a little bit corner cutty. However, I love this story. I love the pace of it, and I think Tony Fleece is doing a fantastic job there. Then we got Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft, issue number 3. I mean, it's Elvira. It's not taking itself too seriously. She's teaming up with the ghost of H.P. Lovecraft to save the Necronomicon from one of the old ones who wants to destroy the world and reality and all that stuff. It's playing with what we know of H.P. Lovecraft now, but at the same time, kind of homaging and talking and respecting like some of the works of H.P. Lovecraft. So I'm having so much fun with this book. The Elvira books are by far some of my favorite at Dynamite, and they continue here in issue number 3 of Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. Absolutely love that. Then we got Justice Ducks, issue number 2. This is continuing the Darkwing Duck story. This is kind of like Darkwing Duck and the Justice Ducks with the team up with Doctor Who. It's not really Doctor Who, but it's a Doctor Who type character. So if you're a fan of Darkwing Duck, I mean, this is the next step right here. And it's a fun book, and it's cool, and it's lighthearted. It doesn't take me long to read, so I like to read it and stay plugged in. Love Me, a romance story, issue number 1 from Mad Cave Studios. Great artwork by Stefano Cordoselli. Really like the artwork, a lot of grit, a lot of cool coloring there. The story was all right. The story was decent. It's about this robot who drives a taxi cab. He's very lonely. He meets a woman. She sets up a date. He gets very excited. Then the ending happens. I don't want to spoil anything, but it was another one of those things where you're like, you could give me more. You could give me more to entice me to come back. That being said, the art definitely has enticed me to come back. I've seen this cat's artwork before. In other books, though, the story didn't quite grab me, like Don't Spit in the Wind and stuff like that. But this one, the story's a little bit better, so I'll definitely be checking that out. Golgotha Motor Mountain, issue number 2. This was a book about some kind of mystical or space asteroid crashes on Earth. These 2 dudes who cook meth find it, and they make meth with it. People start smoking it, snorting it. I don't know how do you do meth? People start using it, and they start growing extra parts and things like this. This introduces this dude who's there to like hunt him down, adding this extra element. Felt a little disconnected. It has been a while since issue number 1. I liked issue number 1 a lot. But issue number 2 just didn't fully work for me. So maybe it's another one of those things where it took too long between issue 1 or 2, or maybe it was just introducing these new elements and not really, I don't know. There was just something that was a little bit off about it for me and a little bit disconnected. But it does get the cover of the week. I love that cover. Now, the art is by Robbie Rodriguez, so is the cover by Robbie Rodriguez? It is. So Robbie Rodriguez gets cover of the week. Beyond Real issue number 3 is here. This book has amazing, glorious, trippy, psychedelic artwork that you could just stare at for hours. It's got a really cool high concept, but at the same time, I'm like really confused by what the hell this book is actually about. I am lost. I have no idea what's going on. I know that this is about a woman whose partner is in a coma, and she finds out that she can like somehow see through the false reality and into the other realities or things like that, but I'm completely lost. But the art in this issue was phenomenal. Then we got Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 2. I read the last one because Dennis Camp had written it. Dennis Camp did not write this one, and it's got some cool ideas and it's playing with some stuff, but ultimately it was just kind of boring. It was just kind of dull, and it didn't have any of that excitement factor, especially from the previous run, those first few issues by Dennis Camp with John Davis Hunt on the artwork. Those high concepts and that artwork and that level of violence for violence sake is not what made the book cool. It was the way that that violence worked with the art, with the pace of that story, and with some of those high concepts. So this one just falls flat for me. And I didn't read this yet because I haven't read the first issue, but I do want to show that Penthouse Comics issue number 2 is out. And I did think about making that cover of the week, but instead I gave it to Golgotha Motor Mountain. Also, from Fantagraphics, we have the second volume of the Atlas Comics library out, which is Venus volume number 2. So I've never read this stuff from Atlas. Atlas was Marvel before Marvel and after Timely, and they did a lot of random books back in those days, and Fantagraphics is going to be printing them in these complete volumes, and so they're putting them in an interesting order, out of order. So like volume 1, which I have right here, was Adventures into Terror volume 1. So it just, volume 1. So there's going to be a volume 2 of this, which is not volume 2 of the overall set. That's kind of confusing, but you know what? Whatever. Who cares? But here's the thing. So Atlas Comics Library, volume 1, Adventures into Terror, volume 1. Atlas Comics Library, number 2, Venus volume 2. Not Venus volume 1. There probably will be a Venus volume 1. What's up with that? Why is one bigger than the other? Why is it slightly taller than the other? The trade dress looks beautiful. That looks great. Are they all a different size? Is there a reason for it to be a different size? Like, is there a legitimate reason for that? I don't think so. It kind of bothers me. Are they all going to be different sizes? Are they all going to be this size now, and then they're going to redo that one, and I have to get that? They look cool, though. They look really neat. I've never read any of this stuff. One day, hopefully, I'll find time. Maybe when I retire. Ha! I'll never retire. Maybe if the comic industry ever does die, maybe I'll just go and reread all these Atlas comic libraries. All right, let's wrap up. Atlas Comic Library number 2, Venus volume 2. Penthouse Comics issue number 2 is here with a butt on the cover. Bloodshot Reloaded Unleashed. Oh, my bad. Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded. Just didn't work for me. Beyond Real, great artwork, but I'm lost. I'm confused. Golgotha Motor Mountain felt like something was missing, but that cover had nothing missing. That was your cover of the week. Love Me, a romance story. Really cool artwork. Story, I don't know if it quite did enough to get there, though. Darkwing Duck, Justice Duck, silly fun. Silly duck fun. Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. Silly Elvira fun. Army of Darkness Forever, the best Army of Darkness book I've ever read. Lotus Land definitely works so well when you have read it all in one chunk. Under Heist, I feel, is going to be the same way. I trust David Lapham. Displaced needs to kind of pick it up just a little bit. Animal Pound was delightful. I really like that. I Heart Skull Crusher kept this momentum going. Blowaway needed to do a little bit more for a first issue for me. Hellblazer Dead in America. Love that classic Vertigo stuff. Crisis, Facsimile, foil reprint with the smell of the week because of the newsprint. Then we got Jay Garrick, The Flash, the final issue. It was decent but predictable. Green Lantern, War Journal. Really good stuff from Philip Kennedy Johnson. Batman Offworld. Just the idea that this is Batman in the beginning of year 2 fighting intergalactic armadas. just seems a little maybe out there. I guess that's the point. I guess if you think of it as an Elseworlds thing, maybe he dies. Then we got Titans. It's kind of losing me. Nightwing was cool, but a lot of cool setup for what's to come. Wonder Woman, another solid issue by Tom King. World's Finest, great artwork from Dan Mora, and a really cool story by Mark Waid. Superman, though, Josh Williamson doing a great job with House of Brainiac so far. Blue Book gets into the Roswell incident. Toxic Commando did not excite me at all. Helen of Wyndhorn was pretty solid. Dudley Datson could have had more exciting artwork for me. Facsimile of Amazing Spider-Man 255. I wish it was on newsprint. Miles Morales Spider-Man, I think I'm dropping it. Spider-Boy continues to be fun. Ghost Rider Final Vengeance, it's aight. Avengers Twilight was badass. That was really cool. Ultimate Black Panther, so slow. We need to pick up the pace on this one just a little bit, I think. Hack Slash, very abrupt, jarring ending that confused me. Something epic, a solid issue. Spawn, Sam and Twitch, they was aight. But Cobra Commander, the pick of the week. Great art, great story, generating excitement, not just in the industry, but in me. I'm so freaking excited about these books. Pick of the week. That's what I read. That's what I dug. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com if you want to help support the channel. I've been rocking Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom.